Yeah, so here we go again. It is Tuesday, 2024-07-16. The time is 14 past 10 in the PM. I guess I've had a productive day. I don't know how I feel about it. For I have managed to write a conclusion, a main part, and what do you call it? Falsification to my bachelor's thesis. I wrote the main part before I had my appointment, which I thought was going to be useless, considering my supervisor had previously stated they would not give feedback. But turns out they gave me very valuable feedback indeed. Sorry for the sweat, it's kind of horrible weather. Well, actually, it's quite lovely weather, but we've had a downpour. So now it's starting to be rather humid, and in here is rather warm. I still got to open up the windows, but I ain't got the key in the ignition, so that'll take a moment. In this appointment with my supervisor, they did contribute of value as to, for example, the weighting of the grading, which, surprise, my worst expectation of reality was surpassed, I guess. Thus far I've been working on the assumption of the bachelor's thesis being the majority of a bachelor's degree. One would think so, you know. Turns out it's worth between 20 and 40%, more likely 25ish to 30. For in work time, at most it should be 90 hours. Now here I am, having spent a lot of time writing a bachelor's thesis. I'd claim more than 400 hours already, so I've outgrown what we are supposed to spend, but I was never informed we are only supposed to spend up to 90 hours. For the thesis film is weighted more than doubly so as to the thesis. That's why I worked on the assumption of doing my thesis film, German, English, language, hard language, between August 1st and the 12th of when it was due, and also my presentation for the defense of the thesis. Turns out the thesis film and the defense of the thesis presentation regarding the making of the thesis film and the thesis film's relation to the thesis way outweighs the actual thesis. And the page minimum, maximum, optimum of 40 pages is only to be seen as a guideline, which means I've wasted the past 2 weeks of my lifetime. And I have had my health, both mental and physical, suffer. There we go, that's the windows open to the correct degree. Due to this. It don't feel great, particularly as I did have the feeling when I started the past 2 weeks. That being the oriented writing on a shot-by-shot breakdown of the title sequences of Daniel Craig era James Bond films, all 5 of them. Turns out my cynical self projection of the future turned out correct, which means I have outweighed the volume of work one should be doing, at least in time. I have not met the page optimum, but apparently that is to be seen as a very rough guideline for one may only write half the pages, which is what I would have done if I focused only on quality of academic work instead of page count, you know. After this, I have written my conclusion and the falsification. Part of the falsification is addressing issues with the paper, and the conclusion and falsification being short, due to me having learnt this news of the thesis itself not being remotely worth as much as I'd hoped or reckoned. I do address in there, because in the end that's going to end up half a page or so. I may still have to add a bit to the main part, but we'll see. Current plan of affairs is for me to proofread tomorrow, be able to give it to my friend for proofreading day after tomorrow, though because the weighting of the thesis is worth so much less now, I'll only be giving them the main part. and I will give them 2 hours time if they need them. I can pay for up to 2 hours, but I can't pay for 4 hours or as much as I'd hoped initially because the fees is not remotely worth it. In other news, this is good news because I'll be able to work on the realisation of a thesis project way sooner than anticipated. Which is the part that's fun for me, you know. It's also more fulfilling. I am hoping to use a studio in the cellar of my former place of internship. I have yet to ask the rentee, but I do not suspect them to oppose the idea. So that's what I'll probably end up doing. I do want to do the Schlieren imaging. Just because, why not, you know, one can. I got everything I need for it beside a point light source, and apparently light rentals have light sources and point light sources. I'll probably use 650 or 1800 watt HMI. Should work, and it's focusable, so that's very good for me. That's something I'll have to figure out, you know. It's kind of funny and sad at the same time, to be fair, but you know, that's just how it is. Can't change the past. Now, the conclusion and falsification of the work will end up having suffered from me having learnt this news, because any time I invest now in the thesis is wasted time, but I still need to invest some time to proofread because I like doing it, format because that's a requirement, and have it printed and bound, and do the layouting for that myself, which is also a requirement. Which means I still got a couple of days work ahead of me with this. I'll be able to start with the actual film work on Thursday, but I'll still have to do another day next week sometime for getting it printed, you know. But I do want to have my friend proofread at least the main part of the work, though they aren't going to get the attachment because I can't afford to pay them for that. And what kind of friend would I be if I were to expect my very qualified friends to be doing work unpaid? I'd be one hella shit friend, so I certainly do not expect that. I expect them to bill me every hour. Then again, I hope they aren't exceeding 2 because it's going to be tight after that. But realistically, they'll get 10, 12 pages. And they have previously stated my work is easy to proofread, so, you know, I'm hoping they'll manage that in 2 hours. I'm willing to pay for up to 2 hours and happy with as any annotation I'll get. I may not honour them all, but I'll happily have them. And when it comes to defence, I'll at least be able to say, oh, there was this and that, which I decided against. Though it came up as, oh, this may be a better phrasing for this. I believe is good enough most of the way. And I have wasted my life. Well, not my life, only a couple of weeks of it, you know, but leave that bitter aftertaste of cynical me saying, I said so, which is not a pleasant cynical me to be having. Then again, that's why it's cynical me, not any me. Kind of feel very mixed about that. I don't like it, but I was right. Cynical me was right. Yeah. That's the camera because I had to turn on the ignition because the light was about to shut off. Oh yay. After this meeting, I spent an hour writing up the conclusion and the falsification, which is rather rapid, I guess, at least for my writing standards. And again, they have no citations, for they are what my mind does for work, or has done over the past several weeks on the side. After this, we had the goodbye party to our campus with uni, because they'll be moving starting shortly. I actually stuck around for a long time, to the point where I left more than 3 hours after it started. Ended up catching up with a couple of tutors, formerly my tutors, now still tutors, but no longer mine, whom I now was, or am, on a somewhat plain level field. this may be the initial curve of the Dunning-Kruger, but I'm not sure. I certainly hope it's the second, but you never know. But they appeared to look at me as a peer, which is nuts, you know. Before I make films now. I did manage to surprise both former tutors and some... Who was it? Yeah. And a couple of former profs of mine, still profs, with my knowledge on things, which I found odd, because for me it's the status quo, I just know it. Which brings me to, I guess, the main thing I've been wanting to talk about for a while. It just took a while to articulate itself in my head. Which is, I've been saying, and I believed it, mediocrity is the best I can do. I shall only strive for mediocrity. I believe it just goes too hard against my mind. I can't do mediocre. This is also a thought I've expressed previously, but is now viewed in a different light, I guess. That is, if I do a job, I am robbing the world of someone else doing the job. Which means I ought to do the best job I can. Which tends to not be mediocre. So, if I do something, I'll do it right. Which means I am not capable of doing mediocre or mediocrity. For pride is a high place to fall from, and this gives pride, but it gives the pride rightfully so. I have the pride because I do a good job when I do things, which sits difficult with my self-esteem, with my self-view, just because I have a hard time accepting it. I mean, I got bad self-esteem and all, you know. Thank you very much for sticking around watching this, by the way. And that's just something I'll have to end up figuring out, because I can't do mediocre. I'm unable. Where are we today? Well, first off, the temperature now is only 19.5 degrees centigrade. The air is not as humid at this time because we've had a terrestrial downpour. It's pretty dark outside because it's 27 past 10 in the PM. It's not. It's 26 past, sorry. We are at the opposite end of town as to where I live, because from uni I decided I'd drive here. Just for change. Get to drive a bit. Not as much going on the roads because we've had a downpour and it's bloody late on a working week night. You know, you wouldn't believe it. People got jobs to do. It's a very odd feeling, not being able to do mediocre, but just don't sit right with my mind. I guess I've had all the puzzle pieces in my hands before, in my head. I've probably said all the parts of this before, in this format, solo therapy, but I just never put them together. I'm pretty sure I said the thing about robbing the world of someone else doing a better job before. And I don't know. I don't like it, but I do. Because at the end of the day, aiming for mediocre is denying myself. But aiming to exceed the standard also brings a risk of only meeting the standard, which is not meeting one's goals. And exception of the standard not being rewarded, even just by other people's view of oneself. Not that I believe I care much. Then again, we are human, apparently. And we care what others think of us. At least we are supposed to. I don't think I'm different in that way. I mean, I am autistic, but I ain't perfect, you know. I'm still human. But that's something I'll have to sort out, like, longer term. My plan for tomorrow is if I manage to get up early, I'll cross the border and get a tank of diesel and some smokes. Fags for the non-Americans. If I don't get up early, I'll drop that point and do it some other time or after or whenever. It's really flexible because the place is open 24/7. I want to use the tank and to get cigarettes. And then in the afternoon, I'll take my printout of my current state as is thesis to the tea joint, drink tea and proofread. Which is where my small collection of pens I carry around with me come in handy. Because I proofread on paper. Because I like it best. For I did once upon a time, I guess about a year and a half ago, train myself correction annotation according to DIN 16511, which is just a standard for annotating corrections. And I like standard, you know. So I learnt the standard for that. T-Man brought it to my attention. Another aspect about liking standards, which I noticed very much so, is for drinks at the uni farewell party to campus. They had a bin on wheels, and it was what is known as Euro Großraumbehälter, for it is half a small Euro pallet or a quarter of a big Euro pallet. It's two of my Euro norm boxes next to each other, basically, or four of my small boxes. It's all based on the European norm for pallets on NPAL, which are usually a rental trade-in system, I believe, in reality. And it's how everything is packaged. Recently I had a friend mentioned to me, they bought a shelf from IKEA, and they bought bins from IKEA, and they didn't fit. And I told them, well, it's because they're all on pallets, you know. Or they had Euro crates, 40 centimetres in width, 30 in depth. Or the other way around, I guess. Height is variable. The footprint is what matters. It's a beer crate and footprint. And they bought a shelf, which on the box stated it was 40 centimetres deep from IKEA. Or, I believe it was a shelf. It was Billy, a bookshelf. Turns out it was only 39.5. So their boxes didn't fit. I believe it's width, but still, you know, don't matter. We then got to the point where we figured the reason they were that is because IKEA use Euro pallets to transport their goods. And their goods have cardboard around them. The cardboard width overall and packaging buffer apparently equates to half a centimetre, 5 mil, approximately. Because that way they can still fit the right amount of these things on pallets and not waste space. If they were actually 40 deep and you add that half mil on, you get one less in width per pallet, which means instead of 4 you get 3, or instead of 4 you get 3, I believe it is, or instead of 8 you get 7, but you lose 1 over however many wide you have on pallet in efficiency, which on economies of scale of something like IKEA would mean they'd actually have truckloads more to transport, which for obvious reasons is not economical because truckloads cost money. That was just an amazing tangent into norms, I guess. There's also a comment I gave about my former place for internship with the initial interview. Walked in the place. Ooh, you use Euro norm boxes! Oh, and you have a brother label maker. Because I recognise the labels, because I own one myself. Because I like to label things. It's just, apparently it was obvious I was autistic or at least neurodivergent in the first place to my former chief of internship before they were my chief. The This is the only comment I left off, which I thought would give me away. Or could have given me away, in hindsight, you know. I hadn't thought I'd given myself away then. I only found out when they told me 3 months later. Just amazing, you know. Then again, I am normal, for me. Because the only head I can remotely look into, and I don't think I can all the way anyways, I have a halfway understanding of what's going on in it, is this one here. And I can for a fact say, I know I have brain, there's not hot air or straw, whatever you like in your language, because I've touched it. Not many humans can say that, but I can. Oh yeah. So I guess that's something, you know. But I'd aspired to do mediocre for a solid half year now. And I don't think it worked out. I failed at mediocre. So I'll exceed the standard. At least for now. And with my bachelor's thesis I already have. Because I've invested more than 4 times the time one is supposed to. And I have the actual pages they recommend, which is not viable for this time period. And it's certainly not justifiable for the time they expect one to put in. I mean, they expect one to put in 2 long working weeks, or 10 days of stressful working. That'd be 9 nowadays, 10 days. At the most, with what it's worth credit-wise. And I can't imagine someone writing 40 pages that actually mean something within 10 days. None of those 40 pages are going to mean something if they do. Good news is I've written 29 pages which don't mean nothing in 10 days, but I've spent days before and I have spent days since, yesterday and today, to be precise, writing the actual stuff that matters. And I'll end up meeting my 40 pages. Which then again has a bittersweet flavour to it. Because I got to pay to have them pages printed. And bound. Good news is there's less difference in money than the parking ticket will be to park at the copy shop I have chosen to be using. Which came recommended. So, by a former typesetter, I believe. Layouter. Layouter? I believe that's the right term. Typesetting is too manual, I believe. But I wouldn't know. For I don't aim to interact with layouters, typesetters on a regular basis for professional purposes. I'm not excluding them from my potential circle of friends. It's just odds are they'd want to talk about something else if they do that all day, you know. I guess another thing that supported my self-esteem, or started to build some, I don't have any to start off with, so there's not much to be supporting, is the idea of a person I've known for more than a year now, revealed they were actually educated in a field, and I managed to talk with them on a somewhat level for that field for a solid 5 to 10 minutes. Just because I have a general interest in most fields, and I know what go on, and I gave them a couple of references of great resources for their field, which they probably don't care for because they are no longer in this field. Then again, it is their fallback should all else fail, which is, I guess, a good plan to have. A fallback should all else fail, you know. Then again, that fallback is probably what mediocre means, and I cannot do that. Fallbacks are still good to have, but I'll aim to not have mediocre fallbacks, but above standard, exceeding the standard fallbacks, I guess. I don't know. Also got to look at that my compensation for lack of self-esteem does not appear arrogant, because I believe it may very well easily. I myself don't care if I appear arrogant, but other people who can do things for me and whom I may want to do things for me apparently do not like the idea of people being arrogant, and me appearing arrogant toward the outworld would be alright if I actually were arrogant, but my self-esteem's pretty fucked, and that's my way of overcompensating for that. Which means if I were to appear arrogant without being so, I'd get the disadvantages of both. just afterthought, I guess. So I perhaps shouldn't put it in writing that I aim to do better than standard, or even say it out toward people I interact with in real life. You may be one of them, but I don't know you are, so that's alright. Thank you very much for sticking around and watching, by the way. It means the world to me. But it's not a standard I should set toward the outside world, I guess. The outside world will be able to observe it themselves. I'll let my actions speak, not words, because fuck words. My thesis is now sitting at almost 100,000 characters, with beyond 20,000 words, I believe. And the average word is 5 characters. Then again, is a word, so is I. That much for averages, you know. Shot, a 4-letter word, has a word count of more than 200 times in this thesis alone now. The describing of one element, one thing you can shoot in one go, from cut to cut. And that's only 4 letters. So that's pulled down the average quite some, you know. It's not too far from the average, so its overall influence is probably minor. Is probably worse. Oh well. Today's drink of choice, just because I ain't got any drinks with me, is the remnant of my peach-flavoured water, which is my card drink at this time. I believe I have no spares in the back, so whenever I next go shopping, I'll have to think to get one, and odds are I'll forget, you know. Oh well. We'll find out then. I haven't been shopping today, and though I'd originally aspired to perhaps consider it, for I forgot the sausage as a major ingredient for what I would like to try and cook. Today is not going to be happening, because we are now at 19 to 10 in the PM, and most shops close 10 PM, so... And yeah, I can go to the one that's open till midnight, but when I've got to pay for parking, then I don't like it because there's too many people. Nah, I'd rather not, you know. Can always go tomorrow or the day after. Food ain't running away. I've got enough in the fridge for the rest of the week for sure. Yesterday I had some old stock food from the fridge that have been in there for a month or so, but was still good, and it was even rated good, so was guaranteed to be good, I guess. Which was vice versa, white sausages, Bavarian food, I guess. Usually one would eat them with pretzels, I believe, but I just had them as they come with sweet mustard. Nothing else beside, just because it was late night yesterday night. And I was saying I want to eat something, you know, something warm. But I didn't even feel like doing pasta, because once you do pasta, you put pesto on your plate, and then you've got to wash up your plate. With a sweet mustard, is alright, you can just wipe it all up with the sausage, and there is no remaining sweet mustard. Sweet mustard. Oh. Sound real fancy when one say it like this. Today is at least the second, probably more so, consecutive day that my smoking is way high. Actually, not more so. The second consecutive day, because Sunday was a low smoking day because I was only driving in Limbo and some video games. So I'm going to exceed all the goals I aim for today again. I probably already have. Probably best part through a packet. Not great. But once I got stability in my life, to the point where I can take on new commitments, I reckon I'll try and reduce my smoking once again. And I may, in the meantime, hold off from lighting a cigarette when I can, and just passively try and reduce my smoking. Which at this time is not working out too well, but passively also means I, frankly, just continue observing the numbers, as I have in the past. And if they change, they change. And I'll consider having a smoke and fumble it around in between my fingers for 10 minutes before I do. Which I guess is a way to approach it. Smoking kills. And if you just fumble it around in your fingers, it don't, because you aren't smoking it. I'm not a medical doctor. This is not medical advice. The one thing I have yet to mention with my bachelor's thesis, here we go, full wrap, back to the beginning subject, is I have yet to mention symmetry, because that is a highly used leitmotif in Germans I've written with Foxtrot, of the Daniel Craig James Bond title sequences, which I may very well mention, because then I got a reason to use symmetry in my final work. If I use symmetry for every centralized axis on the screen, I only needed half the pixels to be actual footage, so, you know. If I do two central axes, which are orthogonal to one another and parallel to the edges of the screen, there we go, that's pretty much describing a cross through the center of the screen, I can shoot in 1080p and export 4K UHD. So, you know, odds are I'll end up shooting 4K anyways, just because why not? No, my camera can do it. Hell, this phone can. And then we'll see, you know. I am hoping the Schlieren work out. I've still got to put a mounting plate on my mirror, for not just a planar mirror, but a parabolic first surface mirror. Borrowed from my telescope I bought from a classmate 3 or 4 years ago. Probably more now, actually. Yeah, it's more like 6 or 7 years. Shit, I'm getting old. For €25, which was a good deal for both parties because they had no use for it. And I like hoarding crap. Then again, turns out handy. How do I dispose of it in the meantime? Now that I need a parabolic mirror for Schlieren imaging, I would have thought, I had a telescope, but I got rid of it. Which is something I can't say now, because I haven't gotten rid of it, because I keep shit. Then again, this is kind of a self-fulfilling thing. If you have enough shit around, odds are you'll need something. And if you throw something away, odds are you'll need it. I don't know how healthy this attitude is. It is rather materialistic. Then again, I like things. To the point where I'm still wondering on how I'll format the Tales from My Shrine or Tales from the Shrine web series, I guess. I probably wouldn't want it on here, because this here is irregular video projects and me talking to myself. Hello there. Thank you very much for watching. And if I were to do a properly produced series, I wouldn't want to mix it with this or contaminate it with this, because this here is effing low production value. I mean, there's a guy talking to themselves in front of their phone and uploading it on the interwebs, you know. And if I actually produce it, I'd want it to be on a channel with just production value. Good production value. Good production quality. Because this is good production value with money spent per time entertained. I believe I'm entertaining you. If you're still watching, I hope I am. I hope you aren't doing this for torture, because if you do, please stop. Then again, no one might hear me say this. It's very well possible. It's not too far removed from reality, considering the way my YouTube statistics have been going in recent times. Oddly enough, though, I'm not too fussed about this, because for me, this is the idea of people being able to have seen this and it being out there in the world, at least for the moment. I may very well take these down one day, you know. Hell, I mean, the amount of things I said to be cancelled. So, you know, before I become a politician, I'll probably have these all unlisted, private, or deleted. So better watch them while you can. In general, if you have any thoughts on this stuff, though you may have private methods of communication with me, and I appreciate your feedback over those, it'd be much more appreciated if you could drop them as comments down in the doobly-doo or below the doobly-doo. My doobly-doos only say solo therapy, and I believe once I put a link in. That link was for the wax lacing video, I now remember. How to do wax lacing for the wiring harnesses, the aircraft method and the Navy method. It was somewhere in the past, so I'm not going to put it in this one. So you'll have to find it yourselves. Oh shit. But, you know, I don't do the YouTube game, I guess. For I'm glad there is people watching this, for it could be anyone. But I'm also glad not everyone's watching it, because odds are I'd lose whatever job I have. At this time I have no job, so I wouldn't lose that one at least, but you know. Cancellation culture is not fun. Cancel me for this. For saying cancellation culture is not fun. Oh no. Yeah. I've been laughing a lot recently. I can just see the smallest of things and find them amusing. For yesterday, was in a supermarket with a colleague, or former colleague, whatever you might want to call them, getting a lot of bananas, among other things. And they weigh out the bananas on the scales, on their cash register. There's the scanning top also works as scales. And the cashier had their technique of stacking them, which I found more than amusing. All it was the method of stacking bananas efficiently onto a small surface. That amused me for solid 5 minutes after having happened, which is because there's small things that make life worth living. I mean, hell, that's what my shrine's about. It's just a load of materialistic small things, but you know, they're nice too. I'm a hoarder. And I can't do mediocre. So I'm an extreme hoarder. Not yet. In the making. Well, good news is, I am limited by surface area, for my flat is only 32 square meters, and I would like to at all times have walkways to all places, for the simple reason of fire safety, I guess. I do at this time manage to consistently keep 90 some centimeter wide walkways everywhere, which is not wheelchair accessible. Then again, my entire flat is not. Minimum 12 steps from ground floor to where I live, no matter if you take the elevator or not. Don't want to dox myself, but good news is I ain't, because flats of the same layout as mine, or apartment buildings of the same layout as mine, with flats of the layout of mine, are placed all over East Germany, because they had like 5 plans and they repeated those over and over. This is one of those 5. 5 is a number I've gotten from thin air. I don't actually know what the number is, but I know there's enough of these flats that it is not enough to dox myself. For of the 5 flats I looked at, one of which I end up living in to this very day, and I will continue on to do so for the near future, one other shared the same layout. And the others were all unique, but I don't live there, so that's fine by me, you know. Yeah. Then again, I am thinking, with trust in everyone and so on, last session 169 for that here. Nice, by the way, nice. 69, haha. In the end of the day, I'm trusting people more than I should in many a thing. But I could just as well dox myself and say, I live here and there. And just figure that if I say it at the end of a video or so, the only people who will have stuck through are people who have some understanding as to what I say, assuming I am not completely inefficient in my usage of words. For if I manage to communicate any of my thoughts, I believe everyone watching this would respect my wishes to have my own space at my flat. Then again, no point in finding out, for if I don't dox myself, I ain't got to find out. I hope you don't find out things you don't got to find out. Small things, so amusing, you know. Hope you find some things in life that perhaps are small but amuse you, because a smile is worth quite a fuck ton, you know. Stay safe, I'll see you around. Cheerio.